Dwayne "Dog" Chapman has lived a life that could rival any action movie, full of danger, heartbreak, and controversy. From his days in a motorcycle gang to becoming the star of one of the most iconic reality TV shows, his journey has been anything but ordinary. But what led the man who seemed unstoppable to the brink of losing it all? Behind the signature sunglasses and bounty hunting fame is a story packed with surprising twists, untold secrets, and a path no one could have predicted. So what really happened to Dog the Bounty Hunter? Stay tuned to find out. You see, Dwayne "Dog" Chapman, the famous bounty hunter, had a tough childhood that shaped the person he became. Born in Denver, Colorado, he grew up in a working-class family. His father, a Navy welder turned bail bondsman, was strict and often abusive. His mother, a Sunday school teacher, tried to instill strong values in her children. Looking back, Dwayne described his childhood as pretty normal at first, but later realized just how difficult it had been. His father had a temper and often hit him, something Dwayne thought was normal at the time. He even talked about a paddle his dad used that left him bruised and in pain. His father, nicknamed Flash for his boxing skills, taught him how to fight at a young age, believing it would toughen him up. But for Dwayne, all he wanted was his father's love and approval. However, at 16, Dwayne decided to leave home and joined a motorcycle gang called the Devil's Disciples. It was a rebellious move, far from the religious upbringing he had with a preacher mom and weekly church visits. While he didn't see himself as a fire and brimstone preacher, he always defended his faith, even getting into a fight with someone who insulted Jesus. That incident earned him the nickname Dog, which one of the bikers said was God, spelled backward. From that point on, he embraced the name and the identity that came with it. In the 1970s, Dog the Bounty Hunter crossed paths with his first wife, LaFonda Sue Darnell, while living in Denver. Their connection quickly grew, and after a couple of years of dating, they tied the knot in 1972. Their journey together took them to various places before they eventually settled down in Pampa, Texas, where LaFonda was originally from. The couple had two sons, Dwayne Lee Chapman II and Leland Chapman. But as their family grew, so did the cracks in their marriage. Chapman's mounting legal troubles began to strain their relationship, and life soon took a turn for the worse. In 1976, Chapman got himself involved in a substance deal that went terribly wrong. While he waited in the car, one of his friends got into an argument with the dealer, Oliver, and tragically shot him. Despite being outside when the crime occurred, Texas law didn't absolve him of responsibility. Because Chapman didn't report the crime, he was charged with murder and sentenced to 5 years in prison, though he served only 18 months. Prison wasn't the end of the road for Chapman, it was the turning point. During his time there, he worked as a barber for the guards and even stepped in during a dramatic moment. When an inmate tried to escape and the guards prepared to use lethal force, Chapman intervened and saved the man's life. This act of bravery earned him respect and a suggestion from one of the guards that would shape his future, becoming a bounty hunter. After his early release, Chapman was hit with a mountain of child support debt. Desperate to find a way to make quick money, he turned to bounty hunting, a career path that, surprisingly, even the judge in his case had encouraged. The judge had noticed something in the way Chapman carried himself during his incarceration and thought he had the grit and resourcefulness for the job. It felt like a fresh start, but for LaFonda, the toll of their circumstances became too heavy to bear. By 1977, she filed for divorce, and their paths diverged for good. After his divorce, Chapman was looking for a new partner. He wrote in his book that he met Ann Tegnell at a biker party in Colorado that same year, and they really hit it off. Chapman said they left the party together that night. When he offered to drive her home, she told him she was only 17 years old. To avoid going back to jail, he married her the very next day. Later, Chapman admitted they barely knew each other and probably wouldn't have gotten married if she hadn't been underage. Even though their marriage wasn't perfect, Chapman and Tegnell had 3 children together. Tragically, their first child, Zebediah, passed away shortly after he was born. They also had 2 sons named Wesley and James. But the relationship couldn't withstand the strain, and they eventually divorced in 1982. After his divorce, Chapman faced a tough blow. He lost custody of his kids, but he wasn't one to give up. Determined to reconnect with his other children, Dwayne, Lee, and Leland, he headed to Colorado. It was there, in a bar, that he crossed paths with Lisa Ray Britton. Bold as ever, Chapman told her he wanted to have a child with her, and even offered her money to make it happen. Surprisingly, Lisa agreed. She left her husband, married Chapman, and together they had 3 kids. But their marriage wasn't exactly built to last. They got married quickly, and it turned out they weren't very compatible. Chapman wanted a flashy Hollywood lifestyle, while Lisa preferred a quiet life in the woods. Their differences eventually pulled them apart, and they divorced in 1991, leaving Chapman single once again. Dog's next wife, Tawny, entered his life while he was still married to Lisa Britton. According to his book, their story began in 1988 when Dog arrested Tawny for substance possession. A few years later, he hired her as his secretary, and their working relationship quickly turned romantic. Tawny wanted a serious commitment, but Dog wasn't looking for anything long-term. Still, after much pressure, he gave in and married her. From the start, their relationship was rocky. Tawny struggled with substance use again, and Dog admitted to being unfaithful. Things spiraled even further after Dog's mother passed away, plunging him into depression and substance abuse. While still married to Tawny, Dog began an affair with Beth Smith, and his marriage to Tawny unraveled. Beth Smith is the woman most people know as Dog the bounty hunter's wife and partner, but their story started long before they became household names. When they first crossed paths in 1988, Beth was actually on the run from the law. She later shared that her trouble started when she was accused of stealing 2 lemons from a grocery store. While trying to make a call at a payphone, she stepped out holding the lemons and was arrested. To complicate matters, Beth was also carrying an unlicensed weapon and had a stack of unpaid traffic tickets. Needing to get out of jail, she called Dog, who was a bail bondsman at the time. He sent the paperwork by bus, leaving her behind bars for 12 hours. When Beth finally showed up at his office, she tried to play it cool, but Dog saw right through her. Beth later admitted that, in that moment, she was completely smitten and determined to make him hers. The chemistry between Dog and Beth was undeniable, but their relationship had its challenges. Despite his marriages, other girlfriends, and struggles with addiction, Dog and Beth remained connected. By 1997, Dog, his kids, and Beth finally moved in together. They later married and built a successful bail bonds business called Dakine Bail Bonds. Their big break came in 2003 when they helped capture Andrew Luster, the heir to the Max Factor fortune. Luster was wanted for sexually assaulting multiple women, and Dog tracked him down in Mexico. However, bounty hunting is illegal there, and Dog was arrested at the border. He had to pay bail to get himself and his crew out of jail. The irony of the situation was that Dog himself couldn't legally arrest anyone in the U.S. due to his criminal record. A representative from the Florida Bail Bondsman Association even stated that his actions could technically be considered kidnapping. Despite the legal challenges, the capture catapulted Dog into the public eye. In 2004, Dog the Bounty Hunter premiered on A&E, and audiences were hooked. For nearly a decade, viewers followed Dog as he hunted fugitives and tackled high-stakes situations. His wild mullet, ever-present sunglasses, and larger-than-life personality became his signature look. Dog later explained that his appearance was carefully curated to intimidate fugitives. Beth often emphasized that their show wasn't just about chasing criminals. At its core, it was about helping people and giving second chances. The show became a massive hit, but Dog's fiery personality, which made him a star, also brought trouble. In 2007, Dog faced backlash when a private phone call between him and his son was leaked. During the conversation, Dog used a racial slur and expressed concern that it could ruin his career if made public. The recording was published by the National Enquirer, and the response was swift. Andy put the show on hold and launched an investigation. Dog issued public apologies, acknowledging the hurt his words caused and promising to do better. He appeared on CNN, expressing remorse and pledging never to use the slur again. His sincerity convinced the network, and the show eventually returned to air. With his long blonde hair, signature sunglasses, and Beth's remarkable ability to chase down fugitives in high heels, Dog the Bounty Hunter became a cultural phenomenon. The family's pep talks before every mission were iconic, and the show remained a fan favorite for 8 years. But in a shocking move, Andy canceled the show despite its continued popularity, leaving fans stunned. After stepping away from Andy, the Chapman family embraced a new chapter with their show Dog and Beth, On the Hunt on CMT. It was a fresh start, but the journey wasn't without challenges. The bail bond industry, which they were so passionate about, faced significant hurdles, forcing the family to put filming on hold while they fought to protect the profession they loved. After a brief break from television, Dog and Beth returned, but this time the spotlight was on something far more personal and heartbreaking. In 2017, Beth was diagnosed with throat cancer. She shared the news with fans in a deeply emotional letter, vowing to fight with everything she had. Following surgery to remove a tumor, there was a moment of hope. By November, Beth was declared cancer-free, and it seemed like the worst was behind them. But their relief was tragically short-lived. Just a year later, Beth underwent another surgery and received devastating news. The cancer had returned, this time spreading to her lungs. Despite the grim prognosis, Beth refused to give up. By late 2018, she spoke about the battle as just another challenge in her life, determined to keep pushing forward. On June 26, 2019, Beth passed away. Dwayne shared the news, saying she had gone to heaven and was deeply loved. In her final moments, Beth didn't want to look at him. Dog believed it was because she knew he was losing hope, and she needed him to stay strong. He tried to keep her spirits up, always telling her she would be okay, even though deep down, he questioned why people say that when they know the truth. The weight of her loss was almost unbearable, and his grief was undeniable. In the end, Beth told Dog to let her go. He struggled to accept it, unable to imagine life without her. But before he could respond, she took her final breath. Beth's death hit Dog the Bounty Hunter harder than anyone could imagine. In an emotional interview with Dr. Oz, he opened up about the darkest moment of his grief, revealing how he couldn't stop crying and even considered taking a handful of pills. Thankfully, he didn't go through with it, but it showed just how deeply he was struggling. On top of his emotional pain, Dog was also facing serious financial troubles. He shared with the Toronto Star that Beth's medical bills and the cost of supporting their large family had drained his finances. He was even on the brink of losing his home because he couldn't keep up with the mortgage. It was a tough time, and losing Beth only made everything feel heavier. A few months after her passing, Dog started experiencing chest pains and trouble breathing. At first, he brushed it off, thinking it was just heartbreak, his heart literally feeling broken. He told Fox 31 Denver that he thought it was all in his head. But when the symptoms didn't go away, he finally decided to seek medical help. Like many men his age, Dog had a tendency to ignore health problems. Beth had always been the one to push him to take care of himself, and without her, he wasn't prioritizing his well-being. Thankfully, Dr. Oz stepped in and convinced him to undergo some important tests. They even documented the process on his show, highlighting how crucial it was to take these health issues seriously. Dog admitted to being a heavy smoker since the age of 12, smoking up to 3.5 packs a day for over 40 years. Despite this, doctors found that his heart was surprisingly healthy. But there was a major issue, a blood clot in his lungs, something known as a pulmonary embolism. Dr. Oz explained how dangerous this condition could be, as the clot blocks blood flow to the lungs, creating a life-threatening situation. Determined to turn things around, Dog got serious about quitting smoking. He started using nicotine patches and committed to therapy to address the emotional struggles fueling his habits. With the help and encouragement of Dr. Oz and his team, Dog began to make changes in his life. After overcoming these challenges, Dog the Bounty Hunter landed a new show, Dog's Most Wanted, on WGN. Dog the Bounty Hunter has built his reputation on taking down some of the country's most dangerous criminals. Among his high-profile captures was Leonard Trujillo Jr., a man with a long history of crime, including armed robbery and assaulting a police officer. Trujillo had been on the run, but Dog and his team were determined to track him down. The hunt wasn't easy. For 12 intense days, they followed Trujillo across southern Colorado, determined not to let him slip away. As the team closed in, they sent out a confident message that made it clear Trujillo's time was up. They weren't wrong. When they finally caught him, the arrest didn't come quietly. There was a scuffle, and Trujillo ended up with a bloody head. Even as he shouted insults, Dog and his team stood firm, jokingly referring to themselves as God's gangsters. That day wasn't just about Trujillo. They managed to arrest 4 more people, marking it as a big win. The dramatic events were featured in an episode of Dog's Most Wanted, filmed just months after Beth's passing, making it an emotional chapter for the team. But life for Dog took some unexpected twists after Beth's death. 7 months later, rumors began swirling about him dating Moon Angel, a family friend. The news sparked tension, with his daughter Lissa taking to social media to call Angel a homewrecker and accusing Dog of being fake. In the midst of this, Dog spoke about how Angel had helped him through a tough time. Things took an even more surprising turn when, during an emotional appearance on the Dr. Oz show, Dog proposed to Angel on live television. She was visibly shocked, insisting they were just friends. Dog later explained that the proposal wasn't serious and was more of a test to gauge people's reactions. Regardless of the confusion, the two never got married. After Beth's passing, Dog publicly stated he wouldn't remarry. But life had other plans. He eventually met Francie Frayne, a woman who, like Dog, was grieving the loss of a spouse. Francie's husband had passed away from cancer, and Dog had originally reached out to hire him for some work around the house. Instead, Dog and Francie connected over their shared experiences of loss. They found comfort in each other, with Dog later sharing how they often talked about Beth and Francie's late husband, helping each other navigate their grief. Dog and Francie started dating in March 2020, and by May, he had already proposed. Many people weren't happy about how quickly he seemed to move on from Beth, but Dog explained that if Beth were still here, she would have wanted him to find happiness. In September 2021, Dwayne and Francie tied the knot and began sharing glimpses of their life together on social media, posting photos and videos of their adventures. Not long after, Dog released a movie called Hunter's Creed, reflecting on his life after Beth's passing. He also signed a deal with a streaming service called Unleashed for a new show, Dog Unleashed, where he continued his pursuit of dangerous criminals. However, controversy struck in 2021 when Michael Donovan, the president of Unleashed, sued Dog, accusing him of making racist and homophobic remarks on set and illegally using a taser. The lawsuit claimed Dog used the taser to intimidate someone while filming the canceled show, which would be illegal due to his prior murder conviction. Dog argued the taser was just a prop, though the lawsuit stated otherwise. In response, Dog's lawyers dismissed the accusations as retaliation from Donovan after their business deal fell apart. They promised the claims would be thrown out, and Dog vowed to sue Donovan for defamation once that happened. Behind the headlines, Dog faced another challenge. His legal troubles extended to unpaid taxes. By 2022, he owed $1.6 million in taxes across Colorado and Hawaii, forcing him to make difficult financial decisions. He sold the Colorado mansion he and Beth had purchased 13 years earlier for $750,000. With the housing market booming, he sold the property for nearly double its original price, bringing in about $1.59 million to help settle his debts. Dog the Bounty Hunter may not be on TV as much these days, but he's still finding ways to make headlines. Recently, he stirred up controversy during a public appearance with a televangelist, where he went on a rant against transgender influencer Dylan Mulvaney. His comments, which included misgendering Mulvaney and making threatening remarks, sparked backlash and reignited debate over his outspoken personality. Amid this controversy, Dog has embraced a new chapter in his life as a Christian influencer. He even wrote a book, 9 Lives and Counting, where he shares his journey to faith. Dog believes his purpose has shifted from bounty hunting to saving souls, viewing his new mission as a spiritual calling. Still, by his admission, he hasn't left his old self entirely behind. He describes himself as a Christian outlaw, someone who's just as passionate about chasing fugitives as he is about helping others find redemption.